at least 2 months before you apply for the visa. Don't get some of those questions right, it's going to lead to you being sent back. I'm super excited to be back making this content for you guys, and I know you guys have missed me. I missed you guys too. And without wasting much of your time, I'm going to move straight into what we're going to talk about today. So on this episode of our content, we're going to be talking step-by-step guide on migrating to the UK on a study visa, wherever you are in the world. Maybe you're in Africa, you're in Asia, you're in America or some part of the world, and you really want to study, in the UK. This content is very important for you, and at the end of this video, I'm going to be mentioning like the most important thing that you need to know when you have a dream like this, trying to study in the UK. And in subsequent videos, we're going to go in depth into all of the steps that we're going to mention today, because if we're going to talk about everything all at once, the video is going to be way too long. So we're just going to give like a brief insight into all of the steps so that you have like a general idea. But just try as much as possible to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so that when we post subsequent videos on like the in-depth details on each of the steps, you'll be able to understand and have like a broader and more detailed understanding of all of the steps as to migrating to the UK on a study visa. The first thing that you need to know is you need to have an idea of the course that you want to study. And this course has to be in line with your study goals, your dream and your vision. We want to go into details later on about how to choose a course, and all of that, how to choose the institution, what to look out for, how to get cheap institutions and all that. But just basically the first step is to have an understanding of the course that you want to study, and then in turn you'll be able to look for the institutions. And these institutions have to be institutions that are recognized and have the license to sponsor students from other countries around the world into the UK on a study visa. And basically the next thing you need to know is that you need to have to check your eligibility. You need to check your visa eligibility. You need to check if you have like the other requirements for a study visa in the UK. It's not just about having like the offer from a university, but do you also have like things like the funds that you can use for your studies? Do you have like for some countries that are not like English speaking, you need like an English test certificates and all that is up to date. So basically you need to check for your visa eligibility. The next step would be for you to apply to an institution. So when you've found a course, you've checked the eligibility, you now apply to an institution. And part of the application, we're going to do a separate video to show how to apply, like a sample video. And in doing this, you need to do it way on time. You need to apply on time, because most times when you get the offer, the process it would take for you to get an offer and then to get your CAS, which is the confirmation of acceptance for study, and then all of that takes time, and then the visa application also takes time. So you need to send in your application on time before the study period or the term time that you intend to study. So if you want to study in September, basically you need to send your offer at least send your application at least like 2 or 3 months before September, so that when you get your offer, you can go through the process of getting your CAS and all of that. And then the next thing is, after you've gotten your offer, most institutions will give you like a conditional offer. So by the time you meet all of those conditions, they will not accept you as their student, and they will give you a document which is called the confirmation of acceptance for study, which is the CAS. And it's a very important document which you will use for your visa application. It's one of the most crucial documents when you are going to apply for a study visa. So when you meet all of the conditions, and we're going to still do other videos about the things that you need to expect when, for you to get your cards from different institutions, and all of that. So we're going to do a separate videos. So if you haven't subscribed, just subscribe. We'll do like a bunch of other videos to, break down all of these steps into like a more broadened content for you to, digest better. The next thing basically would be for you to prepare your financial documents. And the financial document could be like a bank statement, it could be like a scholarship or sponsorship letter. It could be like, there are a couple of things which we'll also talk about in like a different video that, institutions in the UK accept as, financial documents, which will show that you're able to, pay for your tuition and, pay for your studies, and also have, money for, living expenses in the UK. So basically, when you've gotten your cards and you also have like your financial document put together, you also need to put in mind that if you're in a country, maybe like Nigeria or some other countries, you'll be required to have like a tuberculosis certificate or a tuberculosis test taken, which will be part of, the documents you use for your visa application. So if you're in one of those countries, then you have to go for your tuberculosis test and have it done. And one thing about the tuberculosis test, which I'm going to do in like a separate video, is that it's important for you to take it at least 2 months before you apply for the visa, because if it goes wrong, to take another 2 months for you to be able to get the certificate. And within this 2 months, it can end up, messing up your plans and everything. For me, it did the same thing to me. Like my first offer, when I got my first offer, I went for the tuberculosis test, and boom, in a different video, we're going to talk about all that. And then when you have all of this in check, you now apply for the visa. So you just go and apply for the visa. And once you apply for the visa, you'd also have to make payments, pay for your visa fee and your health subcharge, which is your IHS money. And we're also going to do a video on how to, calculate your IHS, your health subcharge, and, the visa fee is mostly standard. And basically, once you've, done all of this and, you've paid your visa fee and you've paid for your health subcharge, you will now be redirected to like another, another website for the visa application center. And for, countries like Nigeria, it's the TLS. So you'll be, redirected there. And that's where you'll be able to pick your biometrics dates. And, in subsequent videos, we'll also talk about like biometrics and all that. So, there are different services you can do. You can do like a walk-in service if you're like in a hurry to get your visa out. You can do a walk-in service and you have to just pay at the visa application center to just walk in and have your visa, biometrics done. And then the next thing that you need to do after you've done your biometrics is for you to wait for your visa. So you wait for your visa, and most of the time, it depending on the service that you opted for. If it's the standard service option, then you're going to have to wait for 3 weeks. It takes 3 weeks for the standard option of your visa application for a study visa to be processed. And if you're going for like a priority visa, it takes like 5 days, so but you have to pay like an extra fee for the priority visa. And if you're going for like the super priority visa, then I think it's like 24 hours and you have to pay like an extra fee. So all of those things would happen at the visa application center when you go for your biometrics. And when you go for biometrics, basically they'll take your face caption and your fingerprints, and have all of that in record as part of your visa application process. So basically, while you're waiting for the decision to be made on your visa application, it is very important for you to also be checking your email. And this is because most of the time when you do your visa application, sometimes when they're checking your application, it comes out like a non-straightforward application. And when it comes to that, sometimes they might require like for you to explain something, maybe with regards to your financial statement, or they might need you to provide some, additional documents. So in the process of, doing this, if you don't check your email, you might, end up, waiting for longer than expected. And, they might even, if you don't respond to something that they've requested for, they might just have to, decline your application because you did not respond to some of those things that, they required from you as an additional document to your visa application. Once the decision has been made, all they'll have to do is, they'll send you an email, and if it's successful, they'll ask you to come to the visa application center to pick up your travel document. And if you have opted for like a courier service, then they will let you know that your travel document will be delivered to you at the address that you've put in. And if it's not successful, they'll also send you an email telling you what the reason why your application was unsuccessful, and when to come and receive your travel documents, and order, and then probably you can try again. But if it's successful, then you have to now move to the next step, which will be for you to go and pick your travel documents. And when you pick up your travel documents, you check on your visa at the time that you're allowed to enter into the UK, and there's an expiration date. So there's a time that there's a limit you can stay before you can use that visa to enter into the UK. So you have to check all of that, because sometimes people get their visa and they're so excited and they don't check. And it's happened to people that I know. They booked a flight, and then they go to the airport, and by the time they're checking, they're seeing that your earliest arrival date should be next month. And then a lot of them have to now lose all that money and book a fresh flight. Once all that is checked, you have to arrange for your travel, which includes for you to book a flight, and all that. We'll do other videos about all of that, how to book your flight, how to get cheap flights, and all that. You see all of the other videos that we're going to make on this channel. And then you also need to understand, as you're traveling in, are you going to stay in a hotel? Are you going to book an accommodation ahead? Basically it's quite hard for you to get an accommodation internationally, because once you get in, there are other things which we're also going to make video of. Once you get into the UK, all of the things you need to do, getting like a right to work, right to rent, and all of that. We'll make all of those videos in subsequent contents. Once you travel into the UK, there's also an important aspect that you need to be careful, because you can get to the point of entry and there's some questions which we're going to treat in a different videos. There are some questions they will ask you in the point of entry at the immigrations, and if you don't get some of those questions right, it's going to lead to you being sent back to your country. So we're going to do like a different video, all of the possible questions that you get asked at the point of entry, and how to answer all those questions, and even the documents that they request for at the point of entry. We're going to treat all of that in a separate video. So traveling into the UK, it's important to bear in mind that there's a point of entry. Once you enter, you haven't just entered, you have to, that's the final stage of entering into the UK on the study visa. And then once you've crossed the point of entry, you will now breathe the air in the UK, and you're like, oh yeah, I've entered. You have to register with the authorities, which is basically your university. And part of this is for you to get your biometrics resident permit from maybe the post office or the address that you're meant to pick it up from. And then once you get your biometrics resident permits, you head to your school, you register with them. And once you've registered with your school, and all that, you can now go through all of the other phases of getting like a bank account and all that, which we want to treat on like a separate video. All of the things you need to do in your first month once you get into the UK. There are a whole lot of other things that you need to do, you know, even before getting like a job, getting your NI number, getting your DBS and all that. We'll treat all of that in a separate video. And then basically the last step is for you to comply with your visa conditions. So all the visas have their conditions. So if you're coming on a work visa, it has its conditions. If you're coming on like a study visa, it has its conditions. And mostly part of the conditions will be the number of hours you are allowed to work, which will be on your BRP and also on your decision letter. And if you adhere to all of these conditions, which some of the times after a year or so, it gets updated. So you need to keep up with like the official gov.uk website to, you know, learn all of the things that, you know, have been introduced as, you know, part of your visa conditions, and also follow through and abide by them. And once you have all of this, you follow through with all of the conditions, and you know you'll be a good citizen, you'll be a good immigrant, or you'll be a good student, international student, and follow through, you would end up having a good time in the UK. The UK is a great place to study, and I wish you all the best on your dreams and your aspirations. And I really hope that this video has been helpful to you. And if you think that there are other things that we should have talked about in this video, you can leave a comment in the comment section. And if there are other steps that we may have skipped, you can also put it in the comment section. And subscribe if you want to get notification from other contents that we'll be making in the future. And you can also check on the page and see other useful content that you might like on the page. So thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you in other contents. Cheers.